Hello everyone and welcome to our YouTube channel, The SlipStream Show. In today's video, we are going to discuss all the things that we learned from the F1's 2026 season's first testing week. First and the foremost, this is the first formal testing which is held at Bahrain International Circuit. So they had a shakedown week, which was a week ago, and which was not broadcasted at all. Although F1 channel posted some videos and some Instagram post, but there was no coverage at all. But this week, they particularly gave a 1 hour broadcast for 3 days, which was like last hour of the testing. So testing starts at like 12:30 India time and ends at 9:30 India time, and it's like with a 1 hour lunch break. So the teams get like 8 hours for 3 days. So we had a limited view last time, but this time we could see the actual cars on the track. So pretty fun, right? So this was new regulation, new cars, very fun to watch. But now let's recap and see why the testing is allowed by the F1. So obviously this year with major regulation changes, teams have a lot of work to do, and that's why they have a shakedown week, they had a testing this week, and they have a testing next week. So by the way, the testing next week will have the entire coverage which will be available in India on FanCode. You can check that out. So the reason they do the testing is primarily to check the engine and reliability and test all other parameters. It's more of a data collection. So they try to collect as much data as possible, right? So that's the whole purpose, because when the F1 teams develop cars, what they do is basically they run all their findings and engineering when they run it in the simulation. So when they do when they run all their settings in simulation, but when they run the car actually on the track, that's when they'll be able to compare the performance of the car, right? So that's the whole purpose. Now let's get into this and see what we learned from this week's testing. So let's see what all teams have achieved what they wanted to achieve and which teams are lagging behind. So the fastest time belonged to Kimi Antonelli from Mercedes, followed by Russell and Leclerc and Hamilton. But in the testing, the fastest time doesn't count. It actually doesn't even matter, the fastest time, right? So because nobody will be running in full full potential, so that's not a relevant data point. The relevant data point is how much mileage or how many laps they've completed over a period of 3 days. So the teams that completed most laps was Williams and McLaren. So McLaren did 422 laps, and I think Williams also did like a 422 laps. So McLaren was the team which I would say, they were most productive. The stability was very good, but at some places you sense they might be slow. So, I mean, they could be, half a second slower or something, but they did a lot of data collections because they run the maximum laps. And even the Williams team. So Williams teams did an extraordinary job. I mean, given that they missed the entire Barcelona testing, coming here and clocking 422 laps is amazing. In fact, they came here and they had a 2-day shoot before they started testing their car. So quite a amazing feat for the team. But thing is, will they be able to get into the top 3, because they finished constructors last year? So will they be one step ahead? We don't know that yet, but I think they will be somewhere in that range is what we sense, but the time will answer that. Now let's look at other teams. So Mercedes, which I thought after the shakedown week, looking at some of the data and some of the pictures, I thought Mercedes will be the team to beat. But coming here, they could do like 282 laps in 3 days. I mean, they had a major reliability issue, which was primarily on the PU, and they missed quite a lot of track time in day 1 and day 2, but they recovered well in day 3. They did a full race simulation along with Ferrari, so they probably will be happy going in, but might not be totally happy. Now, other teams, Ferrari did a 420 odd laps, 421 to be precise, and they could, they did not, they were not in the top one or top two. They like Leclerc had a best time like P3, but the thing that, but they collected a lot of data, high mileage, and yeah, I think they will be happy going in to the next week. And so as the Haas team, right? Haas, which is going to use the Ferrari engine, looked very reliable, especially with Oliver when they were looking fantastic, right? So they'll be happy too. I'm going to talk about Audi. Audi's first season, solid debut for the German manufacturer, coming in as a new engine supplier and their own team, doing stuff in the first season. Difficult, but they have done quite an amazing job. Now let's talk about Red Bull. Red Bull is a team has done a phenomenal job, given that this is their first season. Red Bull powertrains, along with Ford, they built their own engines, and they came here, and I mean they did not do a lot of laps. They did like 300 odd lap, but 340 odd laps. But their focus on the PU energy recovery, and that was amazing, and they look like a solid team. I mean, we'll talk about what Mercedes said about in a few minutes, but I think they'll be pretty happy along with their sister team Racing Bull. I mean, even they had like 300 odd laps. I mean, for one single in manufacturer, two teams, almost 600 odd laps. I think they have a lot of data to go back and improve upon in the next week and going into Melbourne. The last two teams is Cadillac. Cadillac did not do much of a. I mean, they had a lower mileage. I mean, they did like 200 odd laps, and they had a mechanical issue on the final day, so they couldn't, collect a lot of mileage. The team which would be very disappointed going into the second week of testing would be Aston Martin. The reason being, Aston Martin had they're the team which had very less mileage, like 206 laps over a period of 3 days. I mean, they'll be very, very disappointed. At one stage, I think they were looking in the sense, I mean, Fernando Alonso would not be happy. I mean, you have to feel for Fernando Alonso, because at some stage they were like 4 seconds slower than the top team. I don't know if Fernando Alonso will be happy with the Honda partnership this year, but time will tell if they will recover, right? But they'll be the team which will be very, very disappointed with the engine, right? Now let's see which team has an upper hand. And obviously we know which team has a lot of work to do, which is obviously the Aston Martin, Cadillac and Audi will be the teams which, I mean, Audi and Cadillac you can still understand, new entrants, but Aston Martin, they invested a lot. They built their own wind tunnel. They had a huge investment. Lawrence Stroll would have invested millions of dollars for on this 2026 season. But if they do not make that count, they'll be very, very disappointed. Now let's see who probably have the upper hand. After the shakedown week, I personally thought Mercedes was by far the team, because obviously they cracked the 2014 regulation change, which was primarily focused on the engine, right? So we moved from a V8 to a V6 engine, so they cracked that era. But I think coming into this week, everybody thought they were fastest, but after the first day of the testing, Toto Wolff gave a very interesting statement, and he said Red Bull is way far ahead in terms of pace, and he felt Red Bull might be 1 second faster. I don't know to what extent that's true, but they think they're the fastest. Mercedes thinks the Red Bull is the fastest team, and even Russell, after the race or after the testing mentioned that, Red Bull probably has the advantage. So one of the things that everybody saw was how Verstappen was, going in. So the cars are very complex because it's a 50% combustion engine and 50% electric. So it's more of an energy saving thing that, you have to save the battery pack going into the corner so that you save the battery and go faster on the straights. And every team was trying to do, but every team when going into the corner, they're probably going in a second gear. But what Verstappen was doing is he was able to go into the corner with, the first gear, and he could save more energy. And because he saved more energy, he got more power going into the next straight, right? So, for example, in Bahrain, the turn 12 is more like a, you go, Alonso was saying you go into like 250 kilometers per hour on the turn 12, but he was at least 50 kilometers slower than last year's car going into that corner, right? So the team was trying to just save the energy and nothing else. So Mercedes thinks Red Bull is faster. Red Bull thinks they're probably the fourth fastest team. They think they are behind Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari. But obviously, Melbourne will tell. But going by the pure data, it is still very difficult to predict. But I would think Mercedes is still the fastest team. They're probably sandbagging a little bit with all the noise around the combustion, the regulation. Everybody thought they had an unfair advantage and all that stuff, but they'd be the happy team, right? Although they had some issues. Red Bull, we don't know that how faster they'll be. I think Aston Martin will be disappointed. Ferrari will be happy with their running. Will they be top team? Time will tell. So now, what's the driver reactions to all of this testing in last 3 days? Max Verstappen made a controversial opinion about the the car. It's an interesting story. So he said, he cannot. It's not fun to ride. I mean, not that he can't. He said it's not fun to ride because the F1 cars are supposed to go flat out. Whether you're going to the corner or straight, it's supposed to go to you hit the go into the corner carrying more speed, but because that's where you gain the advantage over your rivals, right? It's not the straights that you gain, because obviously you gain on the straight, but it's the corner speeding which gives you advantage. But with the whole 50% battery and 50% combustion, the teams were focused on saving more energy so that they more battery pack going into the corner, and they were not able to go flat out. And that's what Max Verstappen mentioned, and it invited a very a lot of criticism from Lando Norris, saying if he doesn't like, he can retire. George Russell said yeah, the cars are not fun, and etc. But Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and Max Verstappen were not happy with the regulation because they personally think that the cars cannot go flat out. And even Lewis mentioned that it's probably a GP2 engine that he was driving in 2006. So it's quite fun statement. And Fernando Alonso was like not at all happy with the regulation. So will there be impact in the regulation? We don't know that yet, but it's definitely not a good advertisement for the F1 and its future. Now, the other thing is, obviously, we are going to the next week, the second week of testing, and there will be more. Probably we'll get to see a better picture which car would be much faster, and we'll get to hear more from the drivers and the team. Obviously, we will not be knowing for sure which team will be faster going into the Melbourne. The other point and the last point with which we'll close this video is the race start. If you watch the last hour of day 3, there was a race start simulation that all the teams were doing, and Colapinto almost crashed into the barrier while he was warming up his tire and getting into the straight. And 3 of the cars did not get through the lines because they did not have enough battery, I think. But 3 of the cars did not get to start couldn't do the simulation for the race start, right? So if you go to YouTube or something, you will probably find that video as to the teams couldn't really get started. So yeah, a lot of questions to be answered in coming week, but exciting first week of testing, and hopefully we'll get to see more data, more data points to see which car has an advantage, etc. in the going to next week, and yeah, we can't wait for Melbourne. So let's see how that happens, and thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel, SlipStream, the SlipStream Show. We're the new channel. We need all your support, and we'll bring out more updates, more shorts, more videos, race reviews, etc. in coming days. So thank you for support.